Welcome everybody to another episode of Buried Pleasures. I'm your hostess, Pollyanna Amazing, and today I have my sweet friend Kevin. Hey, Kevin. Kevin is from the Jury Room podcast, and today we're going to talk about what gives Kevin pleasure. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome aboard.
I had to lead with it. I had to. You went with the accent. I had to lead with it. First and foremost, thanks for having me. My name's Kevin. Like she said, I'm the host of the Jury Room podcast. All things true crime, anything from serial killers, unsolved mysteries, everything in between. And yeah, you can find me on 8 of the millions of fucking podcasting platforms that they have out there. It's more of a solo host, and then the week after, I usually have a guest on and we discuss the episode.
Fantastic. Well, Kevin, tell
Yes,
me,
ma'am.
we've been talking for a little bit prior to recording this show, and we've been getting to know each other a little bit better. Now, for all you guys out there listening, and you're going to find this a huge surprise, that Kevin thought that the show was about strictly sexual polyamory kind of things because my name is Pollyanna Amazing. Could you imagine?
You're not wrong.
But it's okay.
I definitely thought it was something sexually related, of course.
But again, that's why I'm doing this season of what's your pleasure? Because everybody has this different definition of what pleasure is. And I want to know what people think pleasure is. And so also in this meet and greet we had earlier, we talked about what a Pollyanna is. Do you want to tell the folks out there, Kevin, what a Pollyanna is?
Somebody who is optimistic blindly all the time, no matter the situation, constantly optimistic all the time.
All the time. And
Basically,
I try to.
Annoying fucking people in the world because to
Yeah.
the pessimistic people in the world.
Yeah, so sorry for you pessimists out there. I'm a true Pollyanna, and it's 2 L's for lots of love, not just for polyamory. But anyway, so Kevin, tell me, how long have you been doing the True Crime Jury Room podcast?
So actually, I just crossed over a year in October.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So it's been a year. It's been interesting. I one day woke up and I was like, I can fucking do this. Like, this is easy. I was listening and watching people and I'm like, oh, this is fucking easy. That's the stupidest thing I ever told myself. Little did I realize how much went on in the background. But no, it's been good. It's been a learning experience. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of awesome fucking people. And it's been an experience. It's opened my eyes to a lot of different things that I was definitely ignorant to before. And so it's kind of it makes me happy. I mean, meeting people and talking to people. I'm very introverted by nature, so it's kind of nice that I don't actually have to like sit next to you and talk to you, but I can talk to you through the screen. So no, it's been good. It's a really good experience and I'm loving it.
Phenomenal. And that's what we like to hear on Buried Pleasures, is how people are keeping themselves in a state of pleasure.
Right.
And another one of those things I like to ask people is, like, currently you are podcasting from your home, you are comfortable in your chair. What do you think in this moment would make you more comfortable or more pleasurable? Right? Like, those are the things I want to know. Like, that we have a pleasure scale that we follow. 0 is no pleasure whatsoever. 10 is like 100%. You're in your spot. You're in your pleasure.
If I had to, honestly, it would probably be a pillow, something I could lay my head down on and just chill and just enjoy the conversation. That would probably be, I mean, I'd probably fall asleep. Let's face it, in 5 fucking minutes, but it would probably make it better.
I'm going to guess that you're never going to fall asleep talking to me. That's not going to be a thing.
It's probably not going to happen. And if I did, you'd probably be nudging me like, hey, get up.
For sure. I'd be like, hey, not time for sleeping. It's time for pleasuring right now.
I'm here for that too. Let's go. Oh man, no.
Kevin, when you started your podcast and you started talking about true crime, what was the one case that you thought of that made you think that I want to talk about that one more than any? Which one was it? Or has there been
Ed Kemper? Ed Kemper. So the jury room, actually, I I got it from I was trying, so I'd already decided, right? I'm like months in at this point, didn't have a name, didn't really have a direction for where I wanted my show to go. And I was watching Mindhunter on Netflix,
For sure.
and I love true crime. I do. I love the fictional, the nonfiction. I love it all. And so I was watching Mindhunter, and I was like, and he was talking about drinking at the Jury Room, which is a bar in Santa Cruz, and I was like, dude, I like that. And
Mhm.
so I stuck with it and ran with it, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And so my very first episode was Ed Kemper. So that made me happy. This sounds sick. It made me happy, but it made me happy to have a vision for my podcast, and it made me happy to be able to present it in a way that I hadn't really heard it before.
Mhm.
So that made me happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And even though you were happy about a serial killer, it's not the serial killing that you were happy about, but
Correct.
getting the information out there or actually just investigating, just doing the reading. Ed Kemper is my
He's
husband is a huge Mindhunter fan. And seriously, like I don't like to watch that kind of stuff only because, again,
right.
not my shtick. I'm not trying to talk about people getting murdered, but it's not that it's not in the realm of things that I've had to be involved with in the past in my job. So,
Right.
those are kinds of things that you have to think about when you're looking for an audience. So when you were seeking out your audience, who was your audience? Who were those people that you thought you would reach
Believe
out?
it or not, I didn't really know who my audience was going to be. But as I've gone over the course of the year and plus, I've really come to notice that a lot of my core audience is women, and it's, the females, for whatever reason, they're fascinated by it. They're just infatuated with true crime. And it's one of those things that, for the people who love that shit, they understand when you say like, you get excited about it. And like you said, I'm not excited about the serial killing. That makes me sad. That makes me feel bad for the victims. The missing girls. That makes me sad. That makes me feel bad. But being able to tell their story, being able to bring light to the victims, being able to honor the victims, that makes me happy. Being
That's
able to explore, because it's fascinating to me what makes them tick, what makes them act that way, why are they like that. Society as a whole is positive, but there's a lot of bad shit in society too, and you see the extreme ends on both, covering it.
Mhm.
And so it's good to, explore that human nature, because human nature is fascinating. People are interesting to learn what makes them tick, what makes them do what they do. Why was he a killer? Was it because, because you have both spectrums. You have people who were abused and who were just treated like shit, but you also have people who had a perfect life, who, in quotations, a perfect life, had everything, but they still commit the same crimes. So were they born that way,
Mhm.
or did their background make them that way? You know
Right.
what I
That's
mean?
that whole nature versus nurture conversation.
Right. And it's a conversation that I don't think we'll ever solve. And it's something for ages, but it's still a fascinating conversation to have.
Right. I totally agree with you. And then, too, when you're bringing attention to these cases, just like you were saying, that's the thing. We're trying to figure out why would
Mhm.
somebody do horrific things in to other humans? Like what's the drive? What makes that? And that's kind of, I think in some cases there have been killers that did it for the pleasure of it,
Right.
right?
And that's just it, is they do it because it excites them, it makes them happy. They have that lust for whatever that action is. And for example, like Ed Kemper, like as soon as he killed his mom, the lust was gone,
Mhm.
that urge was gone. He what's the word I'm looking for, he satisfied it. And so now, that urge to kill people is no longer there, as to where you have other people who it doesn't matter how many people they kill. In fact, I just did an episode on him. His name is Patrick Wayne Kearney, and he was killing young boys, men, adult men, and he was killing random, I mean, for years, and killed over probably 40, 50 people. And that was what made him happy. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, why though? And that's,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I think we were also talking earlier about the what was the Netflix special we were talking about Aaron?
Oh, Aaron Hernandez, the documentary.
Yeah, I don't know what the title of it is, guys out there, but anyway, there are the reason why I do my show is that hopefully one day somebody's going to say, well, I know my pleasure may be this, but maybe a healthier way to deal with my pleasure would be that. Right. So not to give away anything of that, but I'm going to tell you guys, if you get a chance to watch that daggone show, watch it. It's fantastic.
The Mind of Aaron Hernandez is
The
what it's
Mind of
called.
Aaron Hernandez. Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that I like to focus on. And again, I like to put definition to what people believe is their pleasure, is their, whatever, because that's in the realm that I have to deal with every day. Like something might mean something to me, but it doesn't mean that to you. And your pleasure deriving from talking about serial killers isn't because you just think that they're super cool, or you want to get down to like the Mindhunter stuff, like why are they
right?
doing this? What is it, so that we can discern all that information, filter it out, and figure out like how can we help people to not feel like they have to do that kind of thing to satisfy their pleasure or whatever it is that they're searching for.
Right. And that's because if you also have that flip side, right? There's a ton of people, and again, if you've been abused, I'm sorry. I'm not like, I feel for you. My empathy, trust me, we all have been through shit in our lives that is traumatic, and I'm not discounting that.
Right.
But the reason too, though, is what about all those people who have been abused who don't go and kill people, right? So why? It's just, I don't know. To me, that's what makes me happy about doing this podcast, is being able to see that perspective. Okay, why? And a lot of these cases, it's crazy too, because at some point, like, I don't have empathy for the part of the serial killer where he's killing people, but if he's been abused or sexually abused or whatever before that point, I empathize, because I'm like, fuck that, like that sucks. Like being abused is not fun. That's not something that anybody should go through. But then that empathy goes away the second they start killing people, because there's a ton of people who have been abused who don't kill people. And so it's, it's that, I don't know, it's just something that makes me happy, I guess.
Right. Well, I think that there is a piece of everybody's mind, right? That we all want to learn new and novel things, and we want to know how pieces fit into a puzzle. We need
Right.
it's a dopamine release when we level up and get something finished or figure something out, right? So dopamine
Absolutely.
plays a huge part in that. And with like your jury room podcast, I'm just going to keep saying it because, oh, by the way, guys, I call it the JR podcast now because, because we're cool like that.
The junior podcast.
He's named it after my dad.
That's exactly her dad. I know it.
You're a sweetheart for doing that. So these guys are ways that you can get into pleasure by hooking up with people that you don't know from Adam.
Right.
And then find out that you have so many things in common. And again, pleasure. We talk about it so many times, and there are things in your day that make you happy, and there are things in your day that make you sad, but finding those things and putting them into a vault of pleasure, the pleasure vault. I like it.
I like it.
The PV.
I mean, it almost sounds like a venereal disease, but that's fine. We're gonna ignore that part.
In my PV and keep it. So yeah.
Yes, I'm here for it.
You know what happens when somebody defines your pleasure that you have defined as something creative and wonderful into something gory and terrible, such as in the case with Ed Kemper, right?
Right.
So everything is a perspective. And I talk a lot about perspectives on this show because there's so many. There's so many perspectives you can look at things through. And I get so mad. My husband tells me a lot of things. Like he's like, let me play devil's advocate today. Ugh, ugh. Stop doing that. I like when you're mad about something and you have it in your mind that's what you want to be mad about. And somebody brings this side note in like, oh, well, what if they didn't have a choice? What if they did? And it's like, dang, I want to look at it from my perspective. And then, right. You're taking that away from me. But really, honestly, I think sometimes we need to slow down and stop and think. And I think that's what makes things like Mindhunter and true crime. I think that's what makes it so enjoyable.
Right.
Is because these are people who have the same, like they were born on this planet, just like the rest of us. Everybody has a mom and a dad in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And it's interesting to see how people tick. Right. That's kind of what, like what I do in my daily job. I have to find out why are people doing or saying or being the way they are based on how I have no idea anything about their background. Right. So like take, for instance, how do you make toast yourself personally? I'm just going to use this as an example. How do you make toast? Do you ever
make toast?
Yeah, like bread, toasted bread. Sorry, toast.
I know what toast is. We're good. Well,
how do you make toast?
I would take 2 pieces of bread.
Yeah.
And I would put them in a toaster.
Yeah, like an upright toaster or like a toaster oven,
like an upright toaster.
Like an upright toaster. Okay.
Right, and then I'd grab a plate while they're in the toaster. The upright toaster, not the toaster.
I don't know what the upright toaster. That's just what I'm calling it today. Like a regular old, like brave little toaster. Get it, guys?
Brave little toaster, right? Grab my plate while I'm waiting for my bread to get toasted, and I'd put it on my plate, butter my bread, and eat it.
Right? How'd you learn that?
Because that's what I was taught.
By who?
By my parents.
By your parents. And who do you think taught them how to toast bread?
Their parents.
Right. But do you think they had the same upright toaster that you had?
No.
Do you think anybody ever read a direction on how to toast bread?
No.
No, probably not, unless you're psychotic. But no, I'm totally teasing. If people out there, but you know what? That is something that you and I would think, or I would have to just say in general, most people would say, I get 2 pieces of bread and I put it in a damn toaster. That's how I make toast. What are you getting at? But why do we do that? Because we saw somebody else do it. Right. And for years, we saw somebody else do that. My mama would stick bread on a fork over top of a gas burner sometimes and make toast that way. Blew my mind. Right. Like, how you going to set bread on fire? But that would sound really confusing. How you going to set bread on fire?
Hey, Mom, we're setting the bread on fire again.
Mama, how'd you get that bread? But no, I mean, I've seen that before. And to me, I was like appalled. Nobody ever, Right. But back then, when I watched my grandmother do that, it was for the speed and ease of she was trying to get out of the kitchen. And, it was that's it. And she grew up without a toaster, Right. She was my mama. She was older. She grew up in rural Kentucky, didn't have a toaster. Right.
Right.
So in those instances where the general population thinks one way is the normal way, doesn't necessarily make that so for everybody. Right. And I think that's how interesting, and I'll filter that into how interesting it is when you talk about true crime.
Right.
Because we don't know all of the facts. We know a lot of them sometimes more than others, but how the person perceives the information that they're given is how everything plays out. Right.
Right. So that's an interesting perspective. So something that you and I had talked about beforehand, learning all these things. So I was very ignorant to the fact that women have a different perspective than I do. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. So as a woman, you are not you in general, but women for the most part. And if it is you too, then that's cool. And if not, you're fucking awesome. But, a lot of women and a lot of experience with the women that I've talked to, different podcasters or just watching social media over the last year is a lot of women have had bad experiences with men. Mm-hmm. And that's, with groups of men, with single men, with telling people no, so on and so forth, whatever the case is. Now, as a single man, my perspective is different. Now, I'm not a fucking douchebag and I'm not one of those guys, right? But it's one of those things that even though I'm not that person, your perception of me is still that person. You know what I mean? So, and that's something that I've learned over the last year or so, is how bad it really is for women. You know what I mean? For just your day-to-day lives, just from going from point A to point B to point C to point D throughout the day, most women are looking over their shoulders, worried, are they going to be attacked? Is that man going to come out? Whatever the case is. And that to me is fucking disgusting, because it's like, I don't have to worry about that shit. Like I get to go from point A to point Z all day long and not have to worry about being attacked. And that it makes me sad for women. You know what I mean? And not like I'm fucking pity you kind of shit, but it's just like, why do you have to live the life like that when I don't?
Well, I'm going to switch up this perspective for you. I love doing this. We can do this all day.
All right, let's do
I love
it.
it. No, okay. So take, for instance, I have a gay friend, homosexual male friend, who sometimes is afraid to walk home.
Exactly. Right.
And so, but again, this story from a male female perspective.
Right.
And there are other stories out there that are similar.
Right.
But also contain separate genders, right? Like it's just a flip of the gender switch, right?
Right.
And so, or the sexuality preference switch. Sorry out there if I misspoke on that. But what the thing is we all don't. I think a lot of people. This is perspective as well. This is my perspective.
Right.
Is that we all have learned certain things through our own experiences. Right. That's where pleasure comes in on a whole nother level for me. We learn things by watching. That's how most people can do things after seeing it done. There are those people who need, directions audibly. Some people need to feel touch. Some people need to read them. I'm not that reader person. What? Like throw me some stereo instructions with some pictures. I like pictures. I like pictures. Anyway, that's just it.
You sounded so country, right? I like me some pictures.
I like me some pictures on things because for me, that's how my brain works. But think about that. All of us, our brains work in different ways based on how we were raised, the environment to which we were raised in, the schools that we were raised in, the interactions that we had going, like straight from high school to college, or even if you were a person who were homeschooled, and think about what that's doing to these kids now. And I swear to God on my life, yes, again, the school district to which my 16-year-old is going to is out of school because of COVID. They need and I understand why, but that doesn't make me hate it any less. She doesn't do well in online school, and I don't do well when she's in online school either. It's just it's a hassle for everybody.
Right.
She needs her social time away from her family so that she can learn how to be an adult.
And you need your social time away from her. It's
correct.
It's a win-win.
Correct. So, in my search for pleasure, school being out, that's not there. It's not on my list of things that I like to talk about, or have pleasure about. But anyway, so when you read books like Mindhunter, and by the way, who's the author of Mindhunter? Do you know what his name is by chance?
I don't, but I can look it up.
So I want to give credit where credit's due, obviously. Very famous person, FBI agent that wrote the Mindhunter book. And there's another book too, right? Mindhunter 2 or something.
Yeah, some shit. There's all kinds of, it's like a huge,
right.
It's a huge thing.
But you have to sit back and be this witness in silence to see the perspectives from everybody's angle.
John E. Douglas and Mark Allshaker.
Okay, there you go. So those authors of that book, collaborators, contributors, whatever you want to call them, they came from two different perspectives. And so they put that in there. And that is, to me, That's my pleasure, is figuring out like what shoot, man. Also speaking is a pleasure for me when I can do it appropriately. Um, I'm leaving that in there. I don't even care. Anyway, the pleasure for to see the differencing in opinions on how pieces of puzzles fit into that particular thing, right? Like that's the kind of pleasure that I derive from those sorts of murder mystery, true crime kind of things. Now listen, that Joe Exotica stuff, true crime, down for all day long, down for all day long,
Oh
only
my
because it's so sensational, right? And all
right.
those people are trashy, and I love trashy people because
Oh my God.
I love them. Because listen, we are all just a product of wherever our parents dropped us off when we were 18 and said, here, live your life. Like if you went to college and you stayed at home for 4 years or whatever, or if you basically moved out when you were 17, got a job, and you never saw your parents again, this is your starting point, right? And some of us got way luckier than others and where they got dropped off. You know? I used to
And
get
others
like,
get dropped off at the zoo.
correct. Well, when I did addiction medicine, when I was doing prescribing for that, there were a lot of people that I came in contact with that I'm just like, holy cow, we are the same age. We went to different high schools, same general area in the world, geographically. I could have very much so been on the other side of this desk where they are,
Right.
and how is it that, again, am I just lucky? Or was there something that gave me a drive that they didn't have? Was there a chemical in my brain that I have because of my genetics that make me who I am?
Right.
Basically, that's a true statement for all of us.
Right.
But how did we get that? How do we turn those genes on and off? How can we share our, like, my ability and ease to talk to people is pretty evident. I can talk to anybody, and sometimes they may not want to talk back. I don't know, but I make people uncomfortable to the point where they're just like, okay, I'll talk to you, so you'll shut up, right?
Well, that's just it. You don't.
That's it. That's it. But I mean, how could we? Like, I want to
Right.
see that book be written, and maybe one day I'll write it. I don't know. Who knows? But I want to know how I can function in a high stress situation, such as an ER, right?
Right.
And definitely have a little PT. I always call it a little PTSD. It's not a big PTSD. It's a little one.
It's just a little one.
Just a little one. Just little. He's little. He's a little guy. He sits on my shoulder and whispers in my ear whenever I have
Walk out of the house at all ever.
correct
Right.
every time. So what I happen to be one of those people that I can talk about my feelings. Some people can't, right?
Right.
I'm an open book. I'm pretty sure at work people are just like, Jesus, stop talking, you know.
I, no, not at
But then
all.
actually, here's the great thing about my job is I get paid to tell people what to do.
Right. So yeah, I guess you're doing the right thing, huh?
Right. Well, there's no stress involved with telling somebody your perspective.
Right.
Laugh out loud.
And that's a good point though. I mean, that's a good question. As you're talking, I'm sitting here and of course I'm listening kind of, but I'm also thinking about how what like what sets you apart, right? Like because you hear about the people who don't go to school but yet are still like
Right.
way up there, and then you have people who go through all the schooling who don't do shit. So
Right.
it's like what sets everybody apart, you know what I mean? And that's a very good question. That's a hard question to answer.
Super hard question. And I'm sure one day when I answer it and I win my Nobel Peace Prize, or,
Have a little fanner, or you're gonna have like a pool boy with a fan and feeding you
a pool
olives.
boy. Did you just say
Oh,
a?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
8
I'm
pool
gonna have
boys.
a
You didn't
I'm
you
gonna
didn't
be
hear
MC
me right.
Hammer entourage in it everything. I only say that because I met MC Hammer years ago at a horse race with his entourage in Virginia.
Oh,
There's a whole lot of people.
they
Whole lot
usually
of
do. They
Yeah,
usually
I know,
travel.
right? So that's one day. One day you can walk with me in my entourage.
Oh, you
Mhm,
know what? Can I be
mhm.
like the front entourage or is it like the back, like on the tail?
No, I mean, like, where are you feeling? Like, if you're feeling like you need to push through people, you can be in the front. If you feel all chill, you can hang out in the back. It's cool. The view is good either way.
That was good. I like that one.
It's that whole I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you walk away.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got
I
you.
caught it. You know what? That one did not go over my head.
But those are those are things I derive pleasure from, is just being silly. That's the realm I live in on a 24/7 scale, is trying to figure out, from my perspective, there are a lot of pleasurable things in the world.
Right,
But for a gentleman such as yourself, doing a true crime podcast, working a full-time job, you have to make ends meet, right?
right,
You have limited time for activities that you deem pleasurable.
right,
So when you're trying to put out podcasting shows is sometimes like a daunting task. And you've done it for over a year. And a lot of podcasts I hear do not even make it through the first year, because people, hello out there, if you have listened to any of my shows, you will know some days it's harder than others to podcast.
that is
There are,
that is a true
depending on who
statement
your guest.
also.
Well, you see, you're smart. You don't have guests on often. Like, you just do it every other week.
Right.
Like, I have to go out in search of people, which I got really lucky. A couple weeks ago, everybody just hopped on board and was like, "Hey, I'll be on your show," and I'm like, "Sweet." Now, who do I want to be on there, and who do I have time to schedule with? And there's some pretty amazing people that reached out to me. You in particular, I'm very happy to have met, because we get to talk about true crime, which is also, like, I'm a huge true crime. I like I like the detective aspect of true crime. I don't like the gory stuff.
Right.
Only it's just personal issue for myself. But again, my dad was in law enforcement. I hang around some law enforcement folks, not often, because it's rough. It's rough. Not
Because of
that
the laws that I break.
I'm in several countries. No, I'm just kidding. But that's the kind of thing. Like, no, I really, really want to know more about what makes those people tick, for that reason, for the mental health aspect,
Right.
because mental health to me, like, did you know that you could tell yourself that you're sick and you just get sick? You know that, right? Like,
You
that's
can convince yourself that you're not sick too.
correct.
Right.
Absolutely. And your mindset, when you get into those cycles of, oh, poor me, and blah, you are releasing chemicals in your brain that affect your entire body, your
And it
every organ system, your skin, your everything.
and it literally makes you feel like shit.
And it makes you feel like shit. Somatically, you want to fall over, jump off a cliff, whatever, wherever it
Right.
takes you to. So, how do we get folks on board with not doing that? I don't know. You
But see,
know,
that's another. That's it's either a circumstances, right, that get them in that rut,
right.
or it's learned behavior. So over the course of my life, right, I've been away from my family and my, like living with my mom or whatever for many many years now,
Yeah.
and I've haven't spoken with my family for many years either now, and so it's kind of one of those things that I, over the course of time, have started to realize, like, fuck, like a lot of my behaviors were learned behaviors.
Right.
That's not who I am as a person. That's what somebody has been telling me to be for years.
Mhm.
Like I grew up in a very, I wouldn't say very, not extreme, but a racist household. And it was, you're not going to date, this, or you're not going to be this, or, you know what I mean? Like, and
Oh,
it
I know what
was,
you mean, honey. I'm from Kentucky.
right. So it's kind of one of those things that,
Yes.
you know, when I was a teenager into my early 18 at, 19 young adulthood, I was
Mhm.
like, fuck that. But the older I've gotten, the more I realized, like, that's not who I am. Like, that's not me. That's not my personal beliefs. That's what somebody else has taught me. And so it's one of those things that you have to break that chain, you have to break that shell of, okay, is this who I want to be because this is what I was told I was, or do I want to figure out who I am and what makes me me? You know what I mean?
Right. That's it. And I
Right.
think that it's so hard for people to reach out because if you looked at social media, the news, whatever, did you know that everybody hates everybody?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right.
No, I mean,
Right.
I mean,
Everybody hates
no.
everybody.
I thought everybody loved each other. What are you
Right,
talking about?
right,
My
right.
my world view. It's
Right. And
destroyed.
all we do is label each other with stuff to make us separate, but
Right.
special.
But
So
see, that's just it though, is because if you go, it's that gratification of social media, it's that justification. Okay, so I don't have kids and I've never wanted kids. It's just not something that I've ever wanted to experience.
I'm not going to say it's a
So
poor choice.
so and
Just kidding. I love my children. I
right.
love you kids, all of you that are listening.
So
No, no.
even though right there, right,
Right.
like it's a joke,
It's a joke.
but deep down inside, I'm sure at some point that you might have had that fleeting thought of what would be my life be without my kids.
Can I tell you really something funny?
Sure.
A friend of mine from high school one day, maybe like a year ago, sent me a picture of me from our senior prom, 1991, guys. Could you imagine how tall my hair was? It was huge. Anyway, so my son sees this picture and he says, "Gosh, mom, you look really happy there. I haven't seen you look that happy." And yeah, he said, my husband says, "Yeah, since 1996." There you go. That's when my son was born. But yeah, that's the thing is that you don't realize how something so precious and wonderful. And we're supposed to propagate this species and do all the things that we've been told to do forever and
Right.
ever. We're supposed to have kids. And
But where I was going with that
yeah,
is though is that justification, right? So through so I knew probably I would say 15 to 16 I had the started having the thoughts of I don't want kids. By 18, 19, I was like I definitely don't want kids, and by the time I was in my 20s I was like fuck, like I don't want them. They're not for me. This is not something I want. I have this irrational fear of fucking another human's life up, and it's just not something that I want to deal with, right? So okay, I just don't want them. Now I'm in my 30s, I'm definitely not having them. I'm good. So but through my teenage years, my 20s, all the way into my 30s, people don't say it now. I hear it every once in a while, and it always comes from people who have kids, right? Through that justification for their actions
huh?
to tell me that, oh, you're gonna want them. I heard that for years. Just wait till you're older. You're gonna want them. You're gonna want them. You're gonna want them. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a period in my 20s where I thought I wanted them. It was probably a good 2 3 years where I was like, oh, I would see like a little toddler with their dad or something, and I'd be like, oh, that's so sweet. But then I'm like, no, and it just wasn't for me. So but that's that justification, and that's what the people look for on social media. It's that validation, even though the media and everybody else wants us all to hate each other. We're all looking for validation, and that's what the internet, I love the internet. It's a blessing and it's a curse at the same time, because there's a lot of people before the internet who now can find people like them, and but at the same time it's just a bad place. There's so much bad negativity at the same time that it just poisons people. You know what I mean?
You are correct. I believe that in my heart. But you know what? Something that I was thinking about while you were speaking is even though you don't want to be a parent, that doesn't mean that you can't be a role model or somebody who, even wherever it is that you're working, your company that you work for, there's a younger guy than you because you're old now,
Right.
by the way.
So one of my employees, I'm a supervisor by trade, right? So one of my employees is the same age that I was when I started with the company that I'm with.
That's the
And
bitch that happens is that you get to be the old one day. Right. Exactly.
and I'm like, we were just talking about it the other day, and I'm like, I was your age when I started. I was the young guy when
Mhm.
I started, and now I'm not, and now you are, and it
But
makes me sad.
now, right. But now you're a quasi role model. Is that
Right.
okay?
And I'm okay with being a role model, like for people looking up to me. Like I'm cool with that. Like That's not the same. I'm not responsible for that person 24/7.
But you know what? Mindhunter talks, right? Like, talk about it. You may have done or said something one day, and this guy's like, you know what? I want to be a super cool podcaster like this dude. And then he goes on to be like Joe Rogan famous, right? You're sitting back going, how the hell did that happen?
Right. And I'm
Right?
still sitting in my closet not being Joe Rogan.
No, I don't want to be Joe Rogan.
No,
But
not Joe Rogan,
I
but
know you
Joe
don't want to
Rogan
be
level.
Joe Rogan level.
There,
Exactly.
right.
Because that's a common theme with podcasters, I think, especially all of us indie podcasters that are sitting back going, yeah, do I want to be able to build my own recording studio in the middle of a city? Yeah, that'd be super awesome. That'd be just terrible. I know, right?
Can I say something though?
Yeah, sure.
For everybody out there who's listening, wherever you're listening at first, thanks for listening. That fucking means the world to both of us. But we don't make any fucking money at this. We spend all of our fucking time doing this. We are not Joe Rogan and we don't make $100 million. I just want to throw that out there in the universe and say, we're not Joe Rogan.
No, we're not. And if you'd like to support podcasts or your favorite podcaster, please try.
Right. If you want to give me your money, I will gladly take your money.
If you enjoy the content and want to keep it going, please be a Patreon.
Or
you don't have a Patreon, by the way.
You don't even have to be a Patreon. Go leave a review.
Right.
Like tell that podcaster, thank you. This is what your show means to me. Right. Because that goes that's like heartwarming to the point where it's just like it makes you want to keep going.
That's it. That's why I do this. I love to get messages from people who say, man, I never thought about it that way. Thank you for opening my eyes to that. Because there are a lot of things in the world I have no idea about. Zero ideas about things, such as true crime podcasting, because I'm not a true crime podcaster, but I know all these scary people names because my husband loves that stuff. Right. So I'm a by proxy true crime. No, I really, there are a few shows like, YouTube, like Bailey Sarian. She puts on makeup. She talks about gross stuff. I'm cool with that. My kids watch that.
See, I like Barry. I was gonna combine her fucking name, Bailey Sarian. I like her. She's good. She's huge. She's blown way the hell up.
Right. So one day, maybe you could start putting on makeup while you're doing your true crime podcast and be that level. So
I will tell you my YouTube idea off the air. So before we go today, I'll tell you my idea off air.
I'm so excited about this. Hey, by the way, exclusive content that you're not going to be privy to until it's time, guys.
Until it's time.
It's a secret. And that's what we like over here. No, what we like at Very Pleasures is pleasure. And this is a pleasurable conversation that I've been having here with Kevin from the Jury Room podcast. Kevin, thanks for coming on my show.
You know what? I loved it. I was pleasantly surprised. I
honestly, we were going to be swinging from chandeliers over here, guys. I
thought there was going to be swinging titties. We were going to be doing helicopters. Like, I don't fuck. You know what? I didn't know what to expect. So I came on with a very open mind. And I am 1000% glad that we got to sit down and have this conversation. It was good. I really enjoyed myself. And I hope to be back on again. This was awesome.
Totally. I'm going to call you in your closet all the time. But listen, hey. Kevin, come out of the closet. No, I'm just kidding.
Kevin oh my God, that joke's so funny. I've never heard that before.
Never heard it. I know. Listen, I get it.
But Kevin, hold on. I have a sound for you then.
Oh, please. Sound. Nobody's offered me a sound before.
Hold on. I think I got another one. All right, there we go. The closet joke.
But
there we go.
That's my good. I think I just posted on Twitter yesterday, actually, as a matter of fact, and reply to somebody something. Anyway, Kevin, where can they find you and the Jury Room podcast?
So you can find the Jury Room podcast on any major podcasting platform. If you like true crime, definitely come take a listen. It's a solo host for for the script, and then I have a guest on the next week where we talk about the episode. I just did Patrick Wayne Kearney, the trash bag killer. If you've never heard of him, go check him out. I'm sure she's going to post the links below or somewhere in these show notes. Definitely click the link, go listen, leave a review. Even if you fucking hate it, you can still leave a review, and it lets me know that people are listening. But yeah, you can find me on social media, Jury Room Podcast. You can email me at juryroompodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, that's where you can find me at. I lost it for a second. Like I was like, I had a whole thing going, and then it just.
It's all right. We're really easy over here at Buried Pleasures. We don't like to rock the boat too much. Kevin, it is a pleasure, and I will definitely be seeing you back. And especially if we could do a special where Kevin puts on makeup while we are doing a true crime.
Only for your Patreon, though.
Dang, that's dope. See, I can't be mad at that. All right, guys. So listen, this is Polly and Amazing. You know who I am. You can find me at buriedpleasures.com. You can find me at Buried Pleasures on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think I got a TikTok. I got all those things. So, hey, listen, hit us up. And when he said that he wants to hear if you don't like his show, please don't tell me if you don't like my show. Just walk away. don't say anything. But if you do like my show, please follow me on any of the social medias. Please rate my podcast. It would be great to hear if you enjoy it. Otherwise, don't put that negativity in my Pollyanna mind. All right. Okay, guys. Well, it has been a pleasure, Kevin. And I thank you for coming on. Guys, have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Just Some Podcast Media.